What's up, grinders? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another midnight rant. So today I'm going to talk about what actually makes learning a language goddamn hard. Now, I'm learning 3 different languages. So Esperanto, Mandarin, Chinese, and Spanish. And I'm going to talk about my journey with these 3 different languages and what I feel actually makes a language hard. Now, I know. There's a system online. You can search your language and it'll tell you roughly how many hours you need to put into learning that language in order to become fluent. I'm not going to talk about that because we all know about it. We all know about, the difference between languages, how far apart they are, makes it harder to learn, adds hours on top, different in pronunciation and scripts, etc., etc. That is the obvious shit. What I want to talk about is content, because I feel like content and your interests in specific content can make a really big difference when you're trying to learn a language. It can even make it super fast for you, fast relatively because you're still learning a language, or it could make it like a slugfest, like you're grinding away, and not in the good sense. So let's talk about Esperanto. Esperanto has very straightforward grammar. It's easy to pronounce. The words all make sense, like they're constructed in obvious ways. So you can jump into the language and within 6 months smash your way through the beginner stages and get up to like an intermediate, B1 plus B2 pretty damn quick, okay? And this is why it's so successful in many ways, because there's so many people who speak it, there's so many resources in this beginner and intermediate stage that you can get there. And then you can just start enjoying the language. You can go meet up people, or you can meet up with people in real life or online, and you can start having conversations. But this is where it suddenly becomes really hard, okay? Because once you get to that intermediate stage, you can pretty much talk about most everyday things without too many problems, but there's not many opportunities to use the language in a deeper setting. So for example, I could, go meet up with my friends, discuss languages, my hobbies, maybe some programming stuff, maybe something about politics and, just have a good time at the pub type of thing. However, there's not many job opportunities available for it. They do exist, but not many. And the vast majority of people are never going to work with it. So you're not going to pick up all of that, in-office vocab that you would need, or you're not going to have to go get a driver's license or passports or anything like that. So there's a large part of the language that you will just never really need to learn unless you go out of your way and try to learn it. Now, that's what I obviously do because I always want to get as good as I can at a language. So basically, I want to get to that super fluent stage. Hell, I want to basically be native. Now, for Esperanto, because there's not a large film industry, in fact, there's very few full-scale films in the language, you're pretty much restricted to reading. So there is hundreds of thousands of books of all different types, which is great for someone who loves reading. If you're a reader, fantastic, man. There is translations, there's original works, whatever you like. But if you're like me and you're not a reader, well, now your options are limited because there are some podcasts, there's some radio stations, there's, vloggers and stuff. But again, most of those topics are all going to be around a conversational B2 level. They're not going to need to go more advanced than that. Now, there is some science, shows here and there on YouTube. But again, not massive amounts of material, not enough to just learn by basically enjoying video content or listening to radio. What you're going to have to do is read. There's no getting beyond it. You need to read. So me, as someone who doesn't love reading, that's not my thing, it makes it extremely hard. Now let's look at Chinese. So Chinese it's an interesting one, okay? Because there's plenty of material for the beginner and up to the intermediate stages, but then there's suddenly a drop in material between intermediate and native. So if you want to go from an intermediate level material and then start watching movies in Mandarin Chinese, there's this black hole of material just missing from the language. It just hasn't been created. And I think that's because material for Chinese has primarily focused on native speakers or people learning the language who will most likely give up before they get to an intermediate stage. So there's just a black hole in the middle there. Now, additionally, the problem also with Chinese is that there is a lot of movies and stuff, but none of it really interests me because I'm a massive sci-fi fan and I love horrors and fantasies and stuff like that. But all the material that's produced for Chinese, all the movies and stuff is this type of three kingdoms type of stuff. So it's like you're back in the, I don't know, like the Qing dynasty or something like that, and there's like a love triangle between the concubines and the emperor and some general and stuff like that. Now, if you love that type of content, bruh, it's just endless. It's freaking endless. You can watch it day in, day out for years and not run out of content. But if you're like me and it doesn't interest you, well, you're kind of screwed, because the alternatives for material is like some office romance stuff and police shows. There's not really that much sci-fi stuff in Mandarin Chinese. Like, it's really hard to find good stuff. Now, you might be thinking, well, then the alternative is just go watch dubbed Western shows. Yeah, that seems like a smart idea. Well, here's the issue. Because the Chinese market has been closed off so much and is controlled so much, very few Western shows are actually dubbed into Mandarin Chinese. Like, even if you use a VPN, you go to Taiwan or Japan, Korea, you're still not going to find much that's dubbed into Mandarin Chinese. And this makes it extremely hard, because you'll literally spend most of your day searching online going, okay, give me lists of movies, Western movies that have been dubbed. Like, it's basically a select few Disney movies, some stuff on Disney Plus, a couple of like sci-fi shows here and there, like The Expanse, which was on Amazon but's not anymore, and that's pretty much it. So it's extremely hard for me to progress, even though there's tons of materials, because most of the material is of no interest to me. So why am I even learning the language? Well, obviously because of family reasons. Wife is Chinese and mother-in-law and stuff like that. So yeah, that makes it even harder. Like, I would say if I at least had the same amount of movies that I do in English, like the same types of movies, bruh, I'd probably be way more fluent than I actually am right now, because I'd just be sitting there enjoying that stuff all day. Now, this brings me to Spanish. Now, Spanish is a language that originally I had no interest in learning, but I decided to start learning as part of an experiment. And by God, this is going to be like the easiest journey in language learning for me. It'd probably be easier than Esperanto and definitely easier than Mandarin Chinese. And here's why. There is just so many resources from beginner, intermediate to advanced, and from what I can tell all the way up to native level. And then if I open up Netflix and I looked at like every single film there, if it's dubbed into another language, it's 100% guaranteed that it is also dubbed into Spanish. Both Spanish mainland and Latin American Spanish. I've been, as of recently, stopped watching like Netflix in English and just watching it in Spanish with like English subtitles, kind of passively type of thing, because hell, why not? Okay. And like, I know as soon as I start getting to that level where I can enjoy this content, I can just sit there for friggin' hours just watching all the types of movies and shows that I absolutely love. And I'll probably like massively speed up in my ability to understand and utilize this language, even though I had absolutely no interest in it at the beginning, just due to the goddamn amount of good resources available for it. And that is what I feel actually makes a language hard or easy to learn. It's the resources, the type of resources, and whether you're interested in that. Now, I would love to hear your guys' experiences with this, because obviously a lot of people go out and learn Japanese literally due to anime, and it's a hell of a reason for why I've even considered it in the past, just because I'm interested in like, you know, sci-fi shit, and there's a lot of that in anime. So yeah, I'd love to hear your interests specifically for the languages you're learning, and whether there's actually resources available that fulfill those specific interests. Anyway, I'll see you all in the next video. And if you're not there, well, I assume you're grinding, because if you're not grinding, I will find you and throttle you with this. Like, I'll just choke you out, man. Yeah, you're gonna get it. And no, it's not gonna be pleasurable.